In today's video, we are going to talk about what rheumatology is and what makes rheumatology unique from some of the other specialties out there. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am a nurse who has worked in pediatric rheumatology and also have experience as an adult rheumatology patient. So if this channel sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell so you don't miss another one of my videos. Be sure to share this video. The more interaction that is on the videos, the more YouTube is going to pass the information in this video to other people. And without further ado, let's get on to the video. So, what is rheumatology to begin with? Rheumatology technically is defined as a specialty that studies and treats and diagnoses rheumatic disease. So what is that supposed to mean? Translation: diseases that involves either the immune system, the muscles, or the joints, or a combination of those three. One of the first unique things about rheumatology is that there is a lot, and I do mean a lot, of gray. There is not a lot of concrete things about rheumatology that, most people are familiar with in other specialties. I'll give you an example. How do you know somebody has high blood pressure? You take their blood pressure and you go and see that number. There's no argument they have high blood pressure. Very concrete, you can see that. Rheumatology is a little bit different. To help kind of try and paint the picture and maybe not be as confusing, it goes like this. Many of the diseases in rheumatology are autoimmune, meaning that it's a disease where the immune system is attacking your normal healthy tissues instead of attacking the germs that it's supposed to attack. Not all of the conditions, though, fall into that category. Fibromyalgia is not autoimmune. Interestingly enough, it does have to do with the muscles and the joints, but it's not autoimmune. A majority of the conditions of rheumatology primarily focus on the joints and the muscles, but not all of them fall into that category. Prime example being systematic lupus. That one does a bunch of different organs. It's not just arthritis. You see how not all the way together this is? There's a lot of variation when it comes to rheumatology and what they treat. So, what do rheumatologists treat? This list is not going to be all-inclusive, but these are some of the most common rheumatology conditions treated in adult rheumatology. This is just for general purposes here. This is just a list of some of the most common conditions that are treated in pediatric rheumatology. Again, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just for general purposes here. This brings me to the second aspect that is unique about rheumatology. Rheumatology does not just focus on one body part. If you see a cardiologist, they're only dealing with conditions of the heart. Very straightforward. You see a neurologist, they're only dealing with conditions of the brain. Nephrologist, only the kidneys. GI, the stomach. They deal with that one body part or system, and that's it. Rheumatology, on the other hand, you might have the joints here, the muscles there, the kidneys here, the lungs here, the skin, the brain. There's so many different aspects because the conditions can affect so many different systems of your body. It's not just the immune system. That's why they're not called immunology, which is a separate specialty. So the third unique aspect of rheumatology, a lot of these conditions have symptoms that mimic each other in their earlier stages. So if you look up the symptoms for rheumatoid arthritis, for example, most of those symptoms are also the same symptoms that you would see in lupus. You can also see some of them same symptoms in Sjogren's. And this is no different whether it's adults or pediatric patients. There are a couple unique ones that you might see more in one condition than another, but if you look at just the straight up list, they're all very similar. So it's a lot harder to figure out a diagnosis. You can't just look at those symptoms and be like, yeah, it's this, or yeah, it's that. Which actually brings me to the next unique aspect of rheumatology. When it comes to diagnosing an autoimmune disease or a rheumatology disease, you don't just look at numbers or like a positive negative lab result. It doesn't work that way. The rheumatologist gets the diagnosis from looking at the whole picture of what's going on with you. There is no one test that, oh, yep, this is definitely lupus. This is definitely scleroderma. You have to look at the whole picture. The doctor's going to look at your symptoms. They're going to look at your lab work. That's going to increase the probability that it's one over another. Seeing what medications work and what don't. Looking at any sort of diagnostic scans, and some of these diagnoses you actually have to do some sort of biopsy too, such as myositis. So it's a lot of stuff that can go into it. And then you can have an autoimmune condition and your labs look normal. That's a thing too. You see how wonderfully confusing this is? This is why I say it's a lot of gray. Now it is because of all of these nuances, the learning curve with a rheumatology condition or an autoimmune condition is, in my opinion, very different from the learning curve of other specialties. There's a huge learning curve no matter what diagnosis you get. But all these nuances, all this gray, you see that a lot more rheumatology. And when you are at that phase where you're pretty sure something autoimmune is going on, or say the lab work's showing something autoimmune is going on, but we're not quite sure what autoimmune thing is going on, you have to look at all the different possible things it could be, which means you have to be familiar with more than one of these conditions, and they're so unique and they look so different in everybody. There's a huge learning curve. And we haven't even talked about medications yet and treatments. We haven't talked about all the different unique labs. We haven't talked about specialty pharmacies. We haven't even delved down that road yet. That's for a future video. And the last unique thing that is with rheumatology is a lot of the symptoms that mimic each other with these different conditions are vague. The fancy term for it is actually called constitutional symptoms. So what are these vague constitutional symptoms? Basically, they're symptoms that could match a multitude of problems with a multitude of organ systems. So, for example, someone's having some nausea and vomiting. Okay, there are so many reasons why that could be the case that you can't just look at that nausea, vomit and be like, oh, they have this condition. It's very vague. And a lot of these symptoms, they could come and go. They could constantly be there. If that symptom is coming and going, you might not think, oh, it's related to an autoimmune thing. You might think it's related to something else. Like maybe it was something I ate. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I'm stressed. Maybe I'm pregnant. There's so many things that one little symptom could match. And the problem is, a lot of people, they start out with those symptoms. And then it goes on for a long time, coming and going or always being there. That's why it's such a challenge a lot of times for people to get an autoimmune diagnosis or a rheumatology diagnosis. Because even though fibromyalgia is not autoimmune, they share a lot of the same symptoms too. If this is all new, you know, or you've been dealing with it for a while and you've been wanting answers, it's very overwhelming. That concludes today's video. I will link a link in the description box below to ACR's website for patients who are caregivers who just got a new diagnosis. I think it's a good resource to kind of break down some of the things that you need to know about rheumatology, because I'm gonna be honest, when you get that new diagnosis or an additional diagnosis for some of us, it's so much information, it's so overwhelming. Let's just be real, you are not going to remember everything that your nurse or your provider tells you on that first day. You're just not. So check that out if that applies to you. And I hope that you guys found this information helpful. Be sure to like, subscribe if you want to get more content like this. I, once again, have an email list and link in the description if you prefer to be notified about videos that way instead of through YouTube. And as always, tell me something good, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!